week on Prepping 2.0.
The conservative view inside Hollywood.
Was it Kamala Harris saying that we're going to make the rest of the country like California?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in California is like, have you been to California?
Yeah.
When disaster strikes, will you be prepared? This is Prepping 2.0 with authors and prepping experts Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher.
Online at prepping2-0.com.
Get ready. Prepping 2.0 coming in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. This is Shelby Gallagher over here at Prepping 2.0. I'm really excited about our show today, but even more exciting is I'm joined by my co-host on this show and co-host in life, Glenn Tate. What's up?
Thank you, dear. We have a great show. We have... our guest is a conservative Hollywood actress, and you're saying, isn't that an oxymoron?
That's
is this even possible? Yes, it is, and there's a fascinating story behind this, and also about blue states and leaving California, and you're gonna be very interested in this, and you may have seen her work, so you might be interested in that too. So before we dive into that, we have a few quick items.
So the top 100. Hey, Glenn, who wishes they had prepped?
People in Bosnia and Texas.
Yes, recently, you bet. So we always like to go through the top 100 list of things to go fastest, quickest in a collapse. It's on our webpage at prepping2-0.com based upon the experience of Bosnians during the 1990s.
And Texans last week.
Yeah, exactly. My goodness. So number 4, seasoned firewood.
Yeah, you can imagine how important that is, but there's not a lot of it. And I know stories from Bosnia in which, and it happened in the siege of Leningrad and a bunch of other things, people were burning pianos, furniture, all these things to stay warm.
And it did happen in Texas. People are burning things that they did not have enough firewood during that incredible cold snap. So
exactly, and we'll put the accent on the word seasoned firewood because greenwood isn't going to get you very far. Well, lurkers come out of the shadows. What do we mean by that? There are a lot of good folks listening to us on the radio, and they're listening to us on the regular show, Podbean and iTunes and all those things, and they get the regular show, which is cool. We love having you. But there's more to this show than just the regular show. And so
today's going to be a great example of that.
Today's going to be a great example. The after show, I think, is going to be pretty smoking. And so if you're a lurker and you don't understand about the after show and you're curious, if you have $2 a month, and you probably do, consider becoming a Patreon, and then you get access to the after show and a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to go into right now. But that way you won't have to be a lurker. And we have this thing going. It's a lot of fun. We do it for fun. If you are a lurker and you become a Patreon, send me an email at glenntate123@gmail.com and just put in the subject line lurker and tell me that you were a lurker and now you're not, and give me your mailing address, and we'll send you a sticker pack. We have all kinds of cool stuff, Prepping 2.0 related stuff. People love the sticker packs, and I'll send it to you because I appreciate you coming out of the shadows. So thank you, lurkers. Well, one other quick announcement, and that is Pam Radio. Yes, Pam Radio. What is that? Prepper amateur radio, electronic flashcards. Electronic. They are not a physical laminated flashcard that comes to you. You buy it, you get the link, you download it onto a thing, on a device of whatever kind, and you go through these, and it teaches you the practical, not the technical. There are no equations and there's no math, because if you guys know me, equations and math don't work with me very well. And so it's all the practical stuff that you as a prepper need to know. It is not test prep for your FCC license. That's a separate thing. Go do that, blah, blah, blah. These have been incredibly helpful to a lot of people because, it's like, oh my goodness, radios and comms, oh, that's complicated. I used to think so. I'm a lawyer. I don't have any technical expertise. I sat down and I learned this, and I realized people were not doing something that they need to do, which is having at least handheld radios to talk to each other when the grid is down. And because they thought it was really hard, I've simplified it. And it's actually, strangely, kind of entertaining. I kind of surprised myself on that. So anyway, Pam Radio, PAM-radio.com, PAM-radio.com. And Shelby has a word for you.
Yeah, real quick, because we could not do this show without our sponsors. So one of our great sponsors, I'm going to call them out right on the spot here. Katie Armor. Katie's CATI stands for Come and Take It. And I would add to that, come and get it while you can.
Yeah.
They deal in body armor for the average Joe citizen, not the military.
Not $7,000 body armor, which is cool, but I don't have $7,000 for that.
It's one of those things where we know that there could be, we've seen it already on the streets, unrest, and body armor could be really handy. And there are inklings and rumblings in, especially at the federal level, to ban such a thing. So come and take it, armor. Use the code GRANT at checkout. Again, you can go to our website, prepping2-0.com, under friends and affiliates. They're there. Use GRANT at checkout, get 10% off. And again, come and take it might also mean come and get it while you can.
Exactly. Well, let's get into it. Samaire Armstrong has appeared in several movies and TV shows. I'll let her explain them because she explains it better. She has a great perspective on Hollywood, the collapse of California, and the future of the United States. And she answers Patreon's questions in the after show. Another advantage of being a Patreon is that you get to ask our guests questions for the after show and they answer them. So with all that, welcome, Samaire.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. You know, it's a little bit unconventional, I think, for a prepping show and prepping audience. They want to learn about, things and preparedness and all that. And a Hollywood actress. Now, how does this fit into all this? We're going to answer that question in the next hour and plus the after show. But I want to just acknowledge to the audience that this may seem like an odd topic, but when you hear what she has to say and her experiences, you will say, I get it now. So let's start off. One of the things people want to know always, I'm sure you run into this, is, hey, what movies or shows or something have you been in that they may have seen? So what are some movies or shows that you've been in?
Sure. And just to clarify, and it's totally cool. I don't want to make you feel bad, but it is Samaire.
Oh, Samaire.
Oh, very good.
Okay, yeah. So I guess I started in Los Angeles when I was 18. I've done shows from X-Files back in the day to my big hit was the OC and Entourage, and I like a scary movie called Stay Alive. I've been on a show called Mentalist for a season and a lot of television. I'm sure at some point, whether it be the Entourage crowd or actually now that I'm thinking about who your crowd is, maybe you haven't seen anything that I've done, but maybe your children have, or girlfriends, or who knows. I don't know. You've never seen anything I've done, right?
Actually, the one time, well, more than one time that we have seen you is on Newsmax.
Yeah.
You've been a contributor.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Newsmax. You might know me from Newsmax. But it's interesting. I know it does seem like a big stretch to have an actress on, but, my family's background is actually in somewhat linked to survival and prepping. Who knows, maybe that sort of set me out on the trajectory to end up on your talk show. But yeah, so that's where I came from. Now I've recently left Los Angeles.
Yay!
Because it was, I had spoke to you, what was it, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a last minute decision for many reasons, but I'm back in Arizona, back where my family is to survive, as it were.
Oh, very cool.
I think we'll tease that out a little bit more. But one question I think a lot of our audience has right up front is, are there any preppers, any preparedness-minded people in Hollywood? I think this answer may surprise folks.
Not in my immediate crowd. I was definitely amongst my crowd. I was the only one who was, always had a knife with me, always had water with me, or always, so I had sort of had this like 2 steps ahead sort of mentality, because again, that's how I was raised. But I don't, I couldn't answer that.
Okay.
Not that I know of. I don't know if that would surprise anyone, actually, but not within my circle.
Okay.
Well, very good. So one of the things that I think many of us have seen recently more than anything in the headlines is kind of just censorship in Hollywood, not being able to have creative licenses, or actors, and probably more specific to you, actors and or actresses not being able to just share their opinion, specifically if it's a conservative opinion. What are your, describe that, and what has your experience been?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been experiencing that for, I'm 40 now, so over 2 decades. And it was very clear when I moved out there in the 90s that, or the late 90s, that it was a liberal city. And George Bush became president, and everyone started crying, literally crying. Of course, I was in a yoga class, so that's the type of people I was around. And there were moments where I tried to express my values within, my platform at the time that I had. And I went as far as to sort of start advocating for the Second Amendment, because everyone was so scared of guns, yet they use them in all their films and use them for protection when they hired someone to protect them. But, no one else was allowed to have them. So I'd put out statements here and there. I did an article saying gun control, who's in control, and it was just vague enough to present the question and not so much the my perspective. If you came out full on saying, these are the things that I believe in, and it being conservative or American values, as it were, you would not be celebrated. You would not get very far. But that became more and more extreme as in the last, I don't know, 8 years. So, and I never quantified myself as a conservative. I had conservative ideas in terms of our family is very much like the government should be involved in individuals' lives for the most part. Like, their job is to take care of us as a country against other countries, get out of our business. That was pretty much the extent of it. But it was when Obama came around, and I really started feeling what I felt, what I believed was right and wrong, and how intrinsically different that was from the people that I was around, and that I had to be just completely quiet about it.
So, wow. So in that sense, you felt censored. Do you, let me take it one step further. Do you feel like you had to kind of self-censor yourself so that you didn't, lose your job?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And especially when Trump came into office, and then people were crying for safe spaces, and everyone is a racist. And even within the industry, there was this big, I don't know if you remember Hollywood So White, hashtag Hollywood, Oscars So White. That's what it was. And so there's this big push for quote unquote diversity, which was long overdue, but it went so far to go the opposite direction. So there was many white people, whether it be producers, directors, writers, actors, they were all getting, less and less opportunities for jobs because of blatantly put, because they were not diverse enough. So even that wasn't something that you could speak up and say, hey, it's great that we're doing this. It is too white. It is not diverse. I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, they told me I was too tan. They wanted me to be whiter. I'm fairly white. It happened to be summer, but so obviously there was much room for improvement, but the conversation was not allowed to be had. Like, hey, do we want to balance this? Do we want to be authentic in this development, or do we just want to jam something in here, which is obviously far more what they were interested in doing. So so that was the first sort of thing that I kept saying. My agents and managers, they would say, it's because you're white, but don't say anything because you'll never work again. And that was the first of it. But it didn't really hurt me from getting jobs. It became the new way. And but really what upset me was I voted for Trump, and I was really excited about him and what he had done. And the ridiculous things that came out in the media about him, or even, when I did vote, I did it anonymously. Like nobody, I had one friend who knew that I did it. And once this year, September of last year, 2020, once I did come out as a conservative and having had voted for President Trump, I lost nearly every single friend. All but one friend who was a liberal. Every other friend who was a liberal just cut me off.
So tolerant.
Right. Yeah.
Well, a lot of our listeners have heard about the Gina Carano situation. She's an actress who is on The Mandalorian. She put up a tweet that was talking about the thought police and all the censorship, and she was instantly fired. And I think maybe they're taking back some of her shows or something like that. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the Gina Carano situation?
I'm so incredibly grateful that whether she did it intentionally or accidentally, or I watched her Ben Shapiro interview, and she kept saying, it appeared in the interview like, well, I didn't really know that was going to be the reaction, So whatever her intention was, I'm so grateful for her to have made that step forward. When I came out all guns blasting because I was really concerned about what was happening to our country. And I think in a lot of ways that may have turned quite a number of people off. But the difference, I think, between what Gina or say like James Woods or Christy Alley or myself or any of the other actors that have come out as conservatives, that she did it while on a mainstream big show. And so, while I had projects going on, it wasn't like I was on the OC and speaking out for conservative American values. She did it in the thick of it, intentionally or accidentally or whatever it was. So she's making a huge break in tradition for the rest of us, because there are more of us. Now, I've heard from a few conservative actors here and there, as I got a little bit more vocal about speaking out, for, I don't know, reality or sanity or conservatism. They sort of stepped back a bit, because I think I began to challenge a lot of actors, like, why aren't you speaking up? This needs to be normalized, because I'm not trying to convert anyone into conservatism, but if we pretend like it doesn't exist, everyone who is conservative openly will be ostracized, and it'll be used as leverage to quote unquote cancel people. The more people that there are speaking out, like not even, aggressively, just like, hey, yeah, I am too, shut up. That's going to be a big change. And I think with Gina Carano, what I'm so excited about with Ben Shapiro is like, as soon as she spoke out and got canceled publicly in such a drastic way like that, someone else swept in with the idea of, okay, hey, we're done with this cancel culture BS. And we're not only are you going to have your own show, you're going to produce it too. And we're going to give you a platform to carry your message. And that's what needs to be shown, right? We need to support the people who speak out. We need to develop our own platforms for media. I'm so sick of what's on television. I feel bad for my son for what's on television. It's such a limited scope of messaging these days. And even The Mandalorian has got this like sort of cowboy-esque, throwback. But then at the heart of it, you're like, well, I know what happened, behind the scenes of this project. And I don't want to watch that. I don't want to give my money to Disney, who works with China, who has people in, in containment camps. Like, no, it becomes very, challenging, because even if I am continuing to work in Hollywood, like, who are the people I'm working for? And do I share the same values? I don't support Disney Plus and their relationship with China. I just don't, and I don't want to be put in a position where I have to either eat and sacrifice my values or not. So that the fact that Ben Shapiro is creating a new platform, as well as others, is so important to all of us.
Absolutely.
I think too, I don't think Gina Carano or even Ben Shapiro, for that matter, is looking to make quote unquote conservative content. They just want to make content that's valuable, to America,
right.
to our society, to our culture.
And I'm going to jump in here because I have an extra question to that'll help. But I want to give a quick shout out to another one of our awesome sponsors, EMP Shield. They have created a device that when you plug your device into it, it protects it from an EMP or a coronal mass ejection.
Yes.
Shelby killed it on that one.
Been working on the acronym.
I have. Mm-hmm. So folks, go over to our website, use click through, and you click on their image, click through, use the term Prepping 2.0 at checkout, and you get 50 buckaroonies off each device that you order. So you bring up a good point, Samaire, that we wanted to ask about too. Dan Bongino's been talking about this. Ben Shapiro definitely has started the process and talks specifically. Dan Bongino talks about a parallel economy and social media system for conservatives. And I'm going to stop right there. And it may not necessarily always be for conservatives, but just this separate platform where people can have, free speech, right? Where they're not constrained by such limiting, they can be on a show like we were just talking about Gina, have an opinion and not risk losing her job. So what are your thoughts on that? This is interesting.
Thoughts on like a parallel Hollywood. In other words, would there be a conservative or free-minded, we would have our own entertainment outlets. There'd be like Disney Plus, and I'll make this up, Freedom Plus, right? A parallel set of entertainment outlets.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. And I think probably just in the way that conservatives seem to operate, I don't believe it would be parallel, but it also wouldn't be it wouldn't be the yin to the yang, meaning it would embody more than just conservatives. Because I think, personally, anyways, there's nothing more icky feeling than an echo chamber. And there's no thriving in that. There needs to be contrasting voices and opinions, and that's how we grow, the duality of it all. So I do think there needs to be a parallel to Hollywood, but it's even bigger than Hollywood. It's not just the right, it's all of it, and there are people, Democrats and leftists, who don't agree with what's going on to the radical extremist side of what's being witnessed in mainstream media. That represents such a small percentage of humanity. And I don't even think that a lot of Democrats are being represented by the people in office, in power. But if they were to say it, they'd be canceled too.
Absolutely.
So hopefully the world that is created would still allow for, both voices, all sides, all ideas, and that freedom. Right.
That's America. Wow. Mm-hmm. What a thought. Mm-hmm. So we only have just a minute here. So, really interesting talking about this. And what I do want to always say is that I don't want to make this, and Glenn would agree with me, and I'm saying this to our listener, that this is not a political discussion so much as the squeezing of our rights as Americans and the homing down on only being able to have one thought. That's a scary thing. But before we go, I'm going to give you 10 seconds and then I get the lead us out.
I wanted folks to know in the second segment, we're going to talk a lot about California and blue states and collapses because Samaire can really articulate that well. So it's going to be a blue state versus red state second segment.
So before we go away, I want you to ruminate on this. So we're just talking about just cancel culture and really the canceling of First Amendment rights to be able to speak and speak out your opinion on politics in Hollywood and how it's bleeding out. That message is being carried to mainstream just living. So when we come back, we're going to ask like what you just said, but I want to know how gross is it in Hollywood, Samaire? So don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
More Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher is coming right up. Hear all our previous shows free online at prepping2-0.com.
Shelby Gallagher here. We found that you need to layer your food preps.
Yeah, this is Glenn Tate here. A lot of times the hardest part of layering is the long-term foods. We love Numana foods, which have a 25-year shelf life and are non-GMO. Also, organic meals are available.
Numana comes in family-style portions and in bulk. This is not backpacking food. It's family meals that last for at least 25 years. The perfect freeze-dried part of your food layering.
You can get a sample of Numana meals for $19.95 and see for yourself. You will be amazed.
Prepping 2.0 listeners get a 10% discount by entering the code PREP.
Go to Numana.com or click the link on the Prepping 2.0 website.
Give it a try. Numana.com. That is NUMANNA.com.
PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Looking to meet other like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own prepper group? Already have a group? Join PrepperNet.com. PrepperNet has gathered the biggest names in the industry to help unite preppers everywhere. Join John Jacob Schmidt, Scott Hunt, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy, Glenn Tate, Shelby Gallagher, Charlie Hogwood, Samuel Culper, Survivor Jane, Rick Austin, Franklin Horton, Ryan Mitchell, and Brian Duff. Our team is united. Check us out at PrepperNet.com. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. PrepperNet.com.
When the grid goes down, darkness will descend fast. Used to be there was nothing you could do about an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, or CME, coronal mass ejection. Now you can protect your electronics, protect your family, thanks to EMP Shield. EMP Shield invented a simple-to-install device that prevents whatever's connected to it from frying in an EMP or CME, and it costs just a few $100s. EMP Shield has been tested by independent laboratories and passed muster with the government, which has ordered lots of them. Google EMP Shield and see for yourself. And save some money. Get a $50 discount per device. Go to prepping2-0.com. Click on the Friends and Affiliates page, then click on the EMP Shield logo. At checkout, use coupon code PREPPING 2.0. It's all one word.
Prepping 2.0 is about that next level of prepping. One of the key 2.0 items to have is bulletproof body armor plates. I used to think body armor was too tactical for a regular guy like me, but it isn't. Give yourself, your family, and your team an unfair advantage when bullets are flying. Body armor used to be expensive and hard to get. Not anymore. Katie Armor, and that stands for Come and Take It, makes solid and affordable body armor for normal people. Get body armor while you can. The clowns in Congress are trying to prohibit future sales. Katie Armor is the place to get it. CATI armor.com. Prepping 2.0 listeners get a 10% discount when you use the coupon code GRANT.
Lincoln here. In 1773, patriots broke the chains of British tyranny by throwing tea into Boston Harbor. On that day, Americans began drinking coffee. We celebrate that event daily here at Minutemen Coffee. All men are created equal. Coffee is not. Minutemen Coffee is roasted to perfection in small batches. Bold, smooth, and never bitter. Shipped to you fresh daily. Whole bean, ground, or our patented pods. www.minutemencoffee.com.
Now, more of Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Shelby Gallagher here, joined by my co-host Glenn Tate and our guest today, Samaire Armstrong, who is a Hollywood star. She's been on many shows, and one of the questions I left her with to think about to bring us in after the break is, describe to us, how bad is it in California politically, economically, socially? And she's just recently left. And I think a lot of other people like her are going to be as well. So what are your thoughts there on that?
Yeah, so it was a big challenge to make that decision, but easily made when I put it in the scope of my son and his, life, essentially. Like what was I giving to him in terms of an opportunity in front of a screen all day for school? That was probably the most heartbreaking thing. It seems that the teachers don't really want to go back. And they've got a bunch of rules set in place for conditions. And while the conditions were partially tied to BLM conditions, defunding of the police or social justice social workers in place. It's a lot of time joining Zoom for the police commissioners every Tuesday, I believe it was, and hearing what the community was demanding of the police commission and what the police chief was doing about it. And finally, it got to the point when they were giving up millions of dollars in support to LAPD. And in under the guise of, okay, we're going to give this to these social workers who are going to take over. And the money was taken away. I believe it was $150 million. And finally, one day, the police chief said, okay, you guys, we can't take away any more. They wanted, I think, another 50 million or 70 million taken from the budget. And he said, this money isn't going anywhere. Right now, it's earmarked for roads. And it was supposed to go to, social workers, but it's not. No one's doing anything with it. And I think that's a pretty good example of how economically challenged California is, that it's a bankrupt state. They don't know how to manage any of the funds, it appears, especially with the wildlife or the park rangers property. What's it called? There's yearly fires where we are.
The wildfires are horrible.
Wildfires. It's a mismanagement of the land because of the environmentalists who have come in years ago saying that, things need to be overgrown. They get talked into all these woke political activist-driven agendas, and as a result, we've got a homeless population in Los Angeles, the size of the city I'm in right now in Arizona. Thousands and tens of thousands. I believe it's like either 50 or 70,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. And before the pandemic, I don't know if you remember this, but before the pandemic occurred, Dr. Drew was going on the news warning about the Black Plague possibly coming in as a result of all the trash and homelessness in Los Angeles last year. Do you guys remember that?
I do, and I wrote about it, and it happened. Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay, there you go. Yes. So, there's so many aspects like that, from the educational system to the environment. They're supposed to be so green and woke, and it's the least energy efficient. They don't take care of it in a way that's inspiring, certainly not inspiring, definitely more detrimental than anything. And I really wanted to stay there and fight. I got into being a part of the MAGA culture and, bringing awareness to, there's other perceptions that could help potentially California. There's several people running for governor out there with the recall of Governor Newsom in pursuit. Major Williams is one person who's, trying to be a possibility for governor. And there's many young people, young conservatives involved in the process as well, and getting Newsom out. And I had the fight in me. I really do. And I really did. And it was a difficult challenging decision to make. But again, you look at this little 8-year-old little dude and you're like, I can't make him suffer for the ignorance of what's going on in this state. And I still have friends out there fighting the good fight. But also I was talking to Glenn about this. I was like, it is rather narcissistic of me to believe that I'm going to be the one out there who's going to make the change to make, California great again. I mean, it's sadly a challenging place to live, and for small businesses that were closed for so long during the lockdowns that are still going on out there. And for no rhyme or reason, they use science as if it's a magical spell that they can just say the word and the stats and data shows up to agree with whatever agenda they have of the moment. It's really disheartening. And now, math is racist, and it's nonstop chaos out there. And I came to Arizona on a whim. Really, I have family out here, so it wasn't. I'd been thinking, long term, this is where I'd end up again. But when I found out that schools were in session here, and they were pretty much operating in reality, I have had to wear a mask once, and it wasn't a natural.
Shocking.
Yeah. I was actually surprised when I crossed the border into Arizona how many people were compliant with wearing a mask. I think part of that is that just nobody has time to look into things maybe or look into research. When COVID first happened, I was talking to my dad, who's well researched, about, these masks. And he sent me some articles on how masks are not effective for stopping the spread of viruses. And a few months later, I checked them out again, and they're off the internet. They're, nowhere to be found. So they're what is it called?
Scrubbed.
What is that word? Yeah, they're scrubbed. Exactly. They're scrubbed from the internet. So who knows? Maybe they did look and they couldn't find the evidence. I can't say it for sure, but we've talked about this, but the critical thinking aspect, it's like we weren't really, I guess I should speak for myself. In my schooling, it wasn't really advocated for. It was more of an indoctrination, and it appears like that's what's been happening for a very long time. Well, so it's sort of shut up and listen, do as I say.
You mentioned leaving California and going to Arizona on a whim. So here's a question for you. Are people that you know, and not necessarily Hollywood people, but just people moving out of California? And if so, where are they going?
They're all going to red states. And yes, they are. And I don't know if the people in red states are saying yay, but I have a friend who lives in Texas, and he's like, don't you bring your, talking about people from California, do not bring your politics out here and ruin our state too. And I think that being able to pick up and go somewhere is well within a lot of people's reach. It's just a leap of faith, right? And I think this is something that goes back to the survivalists and preppers mentality, is the ability to thrive and continue in any sort of environment and condition. Sure, I could have stayed in California and survived and likely thrived in that situation, while even if it's sucky for that matter. But it was more within my nature to set out on an adventure and know that the universe would provide for me. The skills that I've acquired through my life would help me. My ability to, be uncomfortable would benefit me. And these are all things that in terms of American core values, like we just forgot about. Probably not you guys. I'm sure you guys are well aware of it, and even your listeners for that matter. I think that when I spoke out as a conservative, it was with that mindset that, I likely am ending my career by doing this. I've always wanted to be an actress. I still want to be an actress, but to me, surviving and freedom is far more important than any sort of movie I may or may not get, and hopefully that serves as a piece of not inspiration, but a resource to people who think their condition, the existence that they're in the moment, is the end all be all. There's always more out there. And that also goes along with the uncancelability. Like, who are these people who think they can cancel me? I don't even know you. You think you're going to cancel me? What does that mean? And it's that fear that a lot of people are operating under, that there's these elusive woke mob that's going to cancel someone. That's not American. That's not fundamental values that our founders, our framers created this great country on. And if you forget that exists, then you will feel and possibly be cancelable. But it's not reality. When it comes down to it, we're animals, right? And animals have the innate desire to survive. And humans still, whether they know it or not, are capable of that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Well said.
Yes,
well put.
Well said. So, yes to all of the all of the above. So go back and rewind, listeners.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, because we have talked about this, Glenn and I have hammered on this for our show for most of 2021. And I've joked that it's going to be kind of our running thread is like, folks, we encourage you as part of your preparedness mindset is to think about moving to red states. And so it's just encouraging to hear you and in your experience saying the same thing. So the next kind of question that I have for you goes along with that. And I'm saying this as we know we have listeners in California. Do you see, we've all felt this for decades, do you see a California like collapse? Like, what do you...
a California style collapse. Do you see it coming to other states?
I see that as a possibility. It wasn't was it Kamala Harris saying that we're going to make the rest of the country like California? Wasn't that make
Does that send chills
California?
Up your spine? Yeah.
Right? Like, everyone in California is like, have you been to California?
Yeah.
I think that's a possibility, and obviously that's something that some group of people are aiming for, but I think there's something to the fortifying of red states that people are willing to sort of anchor down and spear up about. And I don't think that. I think it's very likely that it's the intention of many, but this is our last stand.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, if we don't fortify red states, our entire country is, pardon my French, but screwed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, let's see. Do you think Hollywood, switching gears a bit, do you think Hollywood has been a contributing factor to what I would call the sad state of affairs in the United States? And if so, how?
I think Hollywood is the fact. What are they? Hollywood and the political world are essentially one and the same, and we saw that so much with Obama and when Hillary was running, and every celebrity under the sun was speaking out on her behalf, and clearly knew nothing about her or what she's done or what accusations are seeping under every step she takes about Hillary Clinton. So they know nothing, right? But they perpetuate this sort of elitist, woke, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my experience and existence, which is very slim, to tell you how you should live your life. They're one and the same. The political world and Hollywood are one and the same. It's two hands of the same body. And I think for whatever reason, social media, all of our technology is aimed at making it appear that those, if they were hands, right, the fingertips would be Hollywood and the political world, Washington, and but the rest of the meat of the body is America, and we're paying attention to the fingertips and completely ignoring the whole capability of the country outside of what happens when we step away from Twitter, what happens when we step away from Instagram. We're back to reality again, and the movie industry perpetuates our being complacent and dependent on these technological little traps, essentially, right? We're all on our phones staring at what the next big, whether it be TikTok or whatever, oh gosh, wokeism is hashtag is being used. Outside of that, there is the real world. And I think you find more of the real world in those red states for some reason. The blue states are perpetuated and using that as a funnel to utilize movement towards their ideology.
Wow. This has been great. Well, we have exhausted the questions that we had for you, and now we're going to turn it over to the people who matter a lot to us, and that is Patreons. And again, one of the benefits of being a Patreon supporter is you get to ask questions of really interesting people like our guest.
Well, and what's really cool too is now their questions are going to be on the air.
That's right. That's awesome. Right. So here you go. And Samaire has not seen or heard these questions. So, we love that because it's fresh, right?
We're going to get to.
They're good questions.
And there's no gotcha questions.
There's no gotcha. Yeah, like what's the square root of -1 or something like that. So Brian Harper asks, and this is about a paragraph long, he says, has anybody in the film industry distanced themselves from you once they learned of your political beliefs? And he says, your Wikipedia page lists your denouncement of BLM and your intent to vote for Trump. Do you believe that this was added as a way to threaten you? And have you received any threats from this? And so I'll leave it at that. There's another part about prepping and stuff, but we'll get to that in a moment. So has anyone distanced themselves, and was the Wikipedia thing like a mean thing to try to intimidate you?
Yeah. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not easily intimidated. But yes, I within Hollywood, I stopped hearing from a lot of my close friends who are in the industry, which really, it is what it is. I haven't lost much sleep over it. And then I actually also simultaneously got a lot of messages from people who I barely knew or hadn't heard from in a long time thanking me. So there's two sides to that coin. And I look at it as anyone who I've lost really didn't mean that much to my experience in life anyways, right? It's kind of it's not even bittersweet. It's, well, good. And so yeah, the wiki is okay. So as soon as I came out on, I never used Twitter, but I was really finding trouble within what was happening, what I was seeing in the news with BLM. Our streets were on fire, our cities were on fire, and nobody was saying anything. And I spoke with a investigative journalist friend of mine from Venezuela who clued me in on BLM, the co-founders' ties to the dictator there. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that piece of the puzzle, and it all sort of came crashing down, the illusion of BLM and what their real intentions appear to be. So I did start speaking out on that. And as soon as I did, it was that evening, I put up a story on I put it in my Instagram, and then people asked me, can you make it shareable? So I put it on my main page. And that evening, it was all the way in England, reported that I called BLM a domestic terrorist organization. And then it was around the world. And what's interesting, I've had more of like death encouragements than death threats. Like, I hope you die, not like I'm going to kill you type of thing. But, that doesn't, it was shocking at first, and more so for my child's sake. Yeah. But I did speak with my family about it before I came flat out about my discontent for BLM and what I saw it was doing to our country, and Antifa as well. And I have the support of my dad. If you know my dad, he's an incredibly strong man, and my mom is a very incredibly strong woman and very educated. And so I feel very armored up in a sense in that way. That was their mentality has always been very encouraging of speaking out for what's right. And so if what's going on is in contrast to encouraging development towards a constructive society, then that's not wrong. That is right. It's okay to speak out on it, even if potentially you'll have death encouragement. So and that's why I moved out to Arizona to work with my dad. Actually, he has a training center called the Spartan Training Center, where he does physical conditioning towards sort of battle hand, close combat training, and it's training the mind and the body to be capable in any environment. And that's really how I was raised. So now I'm going back to that and developing that further for citizens, not just Marines or law enforcement, but people in day to day, because it's getting quite violent out there. And, we need to know how to provide and protect our families and ourselves.
Well, and especially, and you just hinted at something we've talked about extensively here, is being able to protect yourself when you can't call 911 because of either response time or defunding or violence elsewhere. That is the permissive environment that we have right now. And one thing that you've hinted at, and we only have, I guess, about 5 more minutes here, but I've so appreciated, Samaire, the focus that you put on so many of the underlying reasons why you made this move is your child, your future generation. So many of
8-year-old son.
So many of the reasons why Glenn and I have recently made the decisions that we're going to be making and have in the past. I have a 15-year-old son, and I want to create a future for him that is not all of the yucky things that we've already discussed. So I appreciate also too the cohesive family that you just described, and how the world we live in right now is degrading that and is taking it apart. And these are the sort of times where we need to come together as families, extended families, find ourselves in a safer place like red states, and kind of shore up ourselves and make ourselves stronger. So that, to me, that just is the prepping lifestyle, the preparedness lifestyle of 2021. I think that's, and I'm going to give Glenn a chance to kind of add to that. And then we might have like a moment for a question.
I'll simply add this. I'm glad that both you and Shelby hit on the children and being able to go to school, because that's a big deal. We commend episode 90 of this show to people, which was an interview with Shelby's 15-year-old son, which I thought, I'll be candid. She said, hey, let's have my 15-year-old on. And I thought, oh, the wisdom of 15-year-olds. This ought to be enlightening. And guess what? It was. It actually was. So commend that to people. But another thing.
And our kids are hurting in all of this.
Yeah,
and we need to focus on them. So what were you going to say?
Another reason, if you don't mind me sort of self-indulgently saying this, another reason to be out of blue states is that maybe the governor of your blue state, well, if you're in a red state, you don't have to worry about the governor canceling all cancer screenings, and then you get cancer as a result. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that.
Well, and let me just throw this out there, too. A lot of things that I've been watching headlines, in particular, of things happening in red states. I believe South Dakota?
North Dakota.
Just the governor came out and said there will be no more
mandatory masks. You can wear them if you want. It's called freedom. If you want to wear them, no mandatory.
In other words, a county can't, or a jurisdiction of some kind. There is some more constitutional carry states now.
Yeah.
There are... So when you see that happening,
the difference between yucky blue states and awesome red states is getting more and more obvious, more and more. It's like when the tide goes out and you see all these things under the water that you couldn't see before. So there you go. Well, let's get back to the Patreon questions.
So you only have like 2 minutes here.
Here we go. This will be fine. And then we'll of course continue these in the after show, which is where all the fun and goodness happens. Kent Christian asks, how will leaving California affect your ability to get roles? Or are you going to change careers? You've alluded to this, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think I've already affected my ability to get roles within Los Angeles, within Hollywood, by speaking out. So that's gone. But when we're talking about that parallel platform for Hollywood, the anti-Hollywood, as it were, I think that I can live anywhere, and probably best for me to live in a place where I'm thriving internally because of the red state than held up in a hostage in the blue state. So I'm excited to see, and I do believe.
Oh, there's the puppies we were discussing. Yes,
dogs are illegal in blue states. I made that up.
But I think we're on the precipice of something new, and anything's possible. And I really have no idea how it'll turn out or what it'll look like. I hope to tell stories that embody that American value again, and I think I'll do that within red states.
Awesome.
I'll be able to do that.
So, can we interrupt you for just a moment?
Go for it. Go.
Yeah, we wanted to, before we go into the after show, we wanted all the regular show listeners to hear about some of our other sponsors. Numanna Foods, Numanna Foods, long-term bulk freeze-dried foods. And if you go on to our website, prepping2-0.com, and you go to Friends and Families, and you can get 10% off by using the discount code PREP, P-R-E-P, lowercase. Backwoods Home Magazine is a wonderful magazine. You get $6 off if you use the code 6OFF. And finally, the drug pusher that makes my wife's life very, very happy would be Minutemen Coffee and the awesome I Miss America blend, our own blend of coffee. Not to brag, but we have our own blend of coffee because I Miss America is one of our taglines. Minutemen Coffee, if you go on to prepping2-0.com, friends and affiliates, look for Minuteman Coffee, and you're going to get 15% off by using the coupon code I Miss America.
So I want to leave you with this one thought, listener. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Have a great week, everyone.
You've been listening to Prepping 2.0 with authors Glenn Tate and Shelby Gallagher. All the information you've heard today, including all our previous shows, is online at prepping2-0.com. Find out more about Glenn's books at 299days.com and Shelby's books at agreatstate.com. Until next time, be smart, be safe, and be prepared.